Hello, so international break has just finished and the football has mercifully returned. We're back for another week of WGTA, and what a week it is with defences fueling decent scores, but elsewhere a total abdication of point scoring, which has meant that one man in particular has come to the fore in our thinking. We are Who Got the Assist? I'm Tom. Find me on Twitter at WGTA_FPL. My co-host, who, as you can probably see if you're watching or the video, isn't actually here tonight, but he's Anthony at FPL Stag. The league code is 2IP43T, and we're also on video, as I just confirmed. We'll never replace the audio, but just so you know it's there in case you want to watch unedited. So I don't edit it. I edit the podcast I do, but the video I don't. So search us on YouTube. There you go, case in point, to find us there. All the bloopers all included. No Anthony tonight, as sadly he is unwell, but we have a really amazing stand-in, and my great friend Karam at Karam Tayser, seen on the Scoutcast very regularly and just talking about general stuff, mostly actually measuring how tall City players are on Twitter, doing his detective work. He's very, very kindly agreed to step in tonight. How are you, my man? Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Tom, for having me on. Great to have my first appearance on Who Got the Assist podcast. Of course, I wish Stag the speedy recovery, and we are ready to crack on. Some interesting topics ahead of us this game week.
Yep, certainly are. So we are recording just at the tail end of Crystal Palace at Arsenal, which we'll talk about in just a minute or refer to. So maybe some of the scores and some of the things we speak about may change, but probably not too much. It's only like the last kind of 10, 15 minutes. But today's agenda is a slightly different pod. It's a slightly different pod, actually. It's the one Anthony and I were going to do on the 200 Club. We'll come back to that chat in a couple of weeks. But instead this week, it's more of a kind of pivot to the situation where you've got kind of is more of a pivot to a situation with the more expensive asset in the game, which is the current spend. So this is a correspondence-led look at, simply, should we just captain Salah basically all the way up to AFCON because he is just so damn good at the moment. We also chat around the crisis of the premiums, if the freemium or the aggressive premium switcheroo strategies still work. And we might also, look at maybe some cut price premiums who may be doing the business outside of the key ones who currently are failing a bit, so the likes of Son and Vardy. Well, as I mentioned, the game is still ongoing in terms of the Arsenal Crystal Palace game, but I think we can start the game at review, see how they go. Karam, as the guest, I mean, you're doing pretty well this year in the top 50K. How's the season gone for you, and how's this game week gone for you?
Yeah, it's pretty decent season so far. I can't remember a better start to the season than this one across the last few years. And I was helped massively by the captaincy returns, which we will talk about, of course, in this podcast, but I've got a decent returns, almost 150 points from captaincy, but so many others have done that. And kind of a couple differentials on the way made a huge difference climbing the rankings. So pretty pleased with that. As for the game week, I'm finishing as it seems with the current scores. Ben White is finishing 1 point unless he gets a header in the last minute, but I will assume it will not happen. So I'm finishing on 63 minus 4, so a net of 59 points. My heroes is going to be surely Jamie Vardy. Besides Vardy and Salah captaincy, and no major returns from anyone else in the attack. Sarr, Gray, Antonio, Lukaku, done nothing. Clean sheets from TA and Cancelo, pretty delighted with that. And Livramento, the hero, coming off the bench one more time. I might start him next game week, 1 point, but he's coming on for Rafinha, who didn't show up after we spent a lot of energy tracking his flight, but he did not make it finally.
It's a classic Karam moment. If anyone doesn't follow Karam, do give him a follow at Karam Tayser, because that's the sort of thing that he would do, which he literally did do, tracking a plane which looked like it was Rafinha's private jet over the Atlantic from Manaus in Brazil. Unbelievable dedication.
Cheers. Well, many on the community have volunteered to order an Uber, but it seemed it didn't work out at the end. But yeah, I love doing these things, so entertaining.
Yeah, cool. And what transfers did you do this week?
This one I've used 2 transfers, including a -4. I took out Ronaldo for Lukaku, which didn't work out, and Rudiger for a hit to letting Cancelo. So both transfers, 2 points net. That's a win, a W. Of two transfers. But I'm well set up for the next game week when Lukaku faces Norwich. But I have some concerns about Lukaku. So early spoiler.
Yeah, no, fair play. All right, cool. So I'm not doing as well as you, but I did do a little better than you this week. So 69, hooray, -4. Yeah, takes me 65. 69 is contingent on the Gravitas not conceding again or not getting a yellow card or something. So let's see. But yeah, -4 this week is elicited. I think it's a +5 positive swing. So the early thing I followed you actually. I did Cancelo pretty early on. I think I did that last Sunday. Williams to Cancelo very early on. That was really planned. But the Ferran Torres debacle broke over the international break. So if listeners remember that I held him since game week 4 on my wild card, thinking, this Burnley game is going to be the one. And when you find out he's got like a minor injury, it's going to keep him out for a few weeks. So I had to make a choice. I was looking at two. Looking at Trossard, looking at Saka, and I went for Trossard in the end. I really fancied that Trossard pick. We'll speak about that in just a bit. But it was between him and Saka. It fit my rotation sort of plan fairly well because he'll be benched this week and I'll play him more. But he hit the bar, the best player, looking at match of the day, but it didn't quite pay off. The only kind of thing that's kind of a bit of a silver lining there is that Saka, I feel really sorry for him. I love him as a guy, love him as a player, and I was very close to buying him. He went off with a 0-pointer this evening, off at halftime injured. So it's a -1 swing because the Trossard got a clean sheet point rather than the -4 swing. Oh boy, sweet victory.
That's still a win, huh?
Yeah, it's still a win. But anyway, completely similar as you, Karam, fueled by my defense. I don't think I've seen a game week quite like it. My only return going forward was Mo Salah. Everyone else blanked. Antonio, Lukaku, Benrahma, Trossard. But at the back, I had clean sheets for Azpilicueta, Christensen, Cancelo, Trent. And also Connor Cody coming off the bench with 7 points after scoring.
Wow, amazing.
I don't know if anyone has seen the goal. It hit his knee and went in. Like just a goalmouth scram. Oh, it's just ridiculous like that is. But this isn't going to last for me. I think every week you guys will get your Livramento clean sheets, and this isn't going to happen again. But I'm enjoying it this week, that's for sure. But yeah, no, it was a very weird game week. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, where it's just been about the defense so strongly, and that Chelsea clean sheet, for example, for so many people, including myself, there's the Mbeumo chance where he hit the post. So many fine moments in that where basically them having a brilliant goalkeeper in Mendy was the difference between a pretty good week for me and a poor week for me and so many other people who are on double Chelsea defence. And finally, Anthony, I'm just going to voice over him quickly. So he dumped his freemium this week after a hit. He says that after international break results and team structure reasons, he's now got 3 million in the bank, but he decided to kind of get rid of Ronaldo and get rid of Ayling. So he did Ayling to Cancelo, so joined us on that. And he did Ronaldo to Werner. He decided to go double up on the attack. I think because he's not doing as well as he wants to do. I think he's kind of 760k. He was trying to affect that difference with a differential up front. I think his Werner's less 1% own, for example, but it's not quite worked this week. Obviously, he's got those 57 nets, so 6-1 -4, which is an okay score. He also got the Cody lucky clean sheet. Sorry, he also got the lucky Cody goal, Livramento, Cancelo, Sanchez clean sheets. But other than that, not really many returns, really. But hey, it took a chance with Werner. Again, we'll come on to that later on. Let's pick up the objectives quickly. I'm not going to speak about Anthony's. I will speak about mine quickly. So we did this at the start of the year just to make sure we've got that sort of thin red line running through everything we do this season. Captaincy was my first objective. Do what Mikel's captaincy algorithm tells us to do every week. I did with Salah, and I'm very glad I did. Transfers in a 50 situation, take the hit. Well, I had to take a transfer this week, so it wasn't really a 50 situation. And take a chance on form. Maybe I could have gotten somebody else in with that objective in mind, actually, over Trossard. I guess I was taking advantage of or taking a chance on the poor form of Norwich's defence. And Karam and I spoke actually before the game week, and I was saying, I like the fact that Norwich are conceding down their left flank. And Karam was like, well, do you need to get the right winger? But I was like, well, he's Trossard's playing up front and he's playing all over the pitch, so maybe it would be decent. I don't know. It's very ropey reasoning, but perhaps I can kind of give myself a small kind of half mark for that one, as it were. And Karam, I mean, do you have any kind of objectives that you set yourself this season, or any sort of words of advice that you can kind of write down for yourself to guide your principles throughout the year?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of them which I would say that I've stuck with them most of the season so far. So it seems that the approach I've decided on is working. And I think the first one is about the captaincy. I think this season I decided to always captain a premium player versus a good fixture, unless a decent player playing Norwich. And I've got an example with Mahrez. He's not a premium, but he had a decent fixture against Norwich, and I got away with it, I must admit.
That was game week 2, wasn't it? When Bruno and Salah both blanked, and you got a goal off the bench, and it was a huge W.
Exactly. I think Salah he blanked in that game week against Burnley, right? And it was kind of a win at the end. But other than that, I've pretty much captained either Salah or Ronaldo. I think there was I think Antonio started the season really in a scary form, and I captained him once where he got 11 points times 2. But apart from that, I've always captained Salah or Ronaldo this season, and I think it will continue this way. There are some opportunities in the next couple of weeks, like Lukaku next game week and all of that. So I'm pretty happy with it, and there is no need to change it. I think the other one is the subject is titled is quoted from you, Tom, when you launched Operation Target Bournemouth a couple of seasons ago. So I'm calling it Operation Target Norwich where possible. And the first few game weeks have really rewarded me massively. Liverpool against Norwich, City against Norwich. Gray got an assist from there. So I've always got some points. I remember, as it stands, I've got 18 points of my total points this season, just because I targeted players against Norwich. And that's very decent. And I didn't target them the last couple, which I feel like I got away with it with Mopé, Trossard or so. That really good shouts against Norwich. But I'm planning to target them next few game weeks with Brentford. Chelsea are facing them next. So it kind of always opens opportunity when managers are looking elsewhere with dealing with freemium, with dealing with bigger the back. I find these kind of opportunities where I can punt on these players. Well, I'm happy to carry them for 1 or 2 more weeks before I move on to the next one. So it's kind of working so far. I think a great example for this season is basically don't get scared from the bubble. And a credit to the community, the structure, the template has been working really well with Antonio, Salah, and all of them. But when an opportunity arises, grab them, and that's what I did with the injury of Calvert-Lewin. Then moved to Bamford, and then Bamford got injured, and I had 3 million in the bank, and I decided to go for Vardy just because I can, basically. I was endorsed also by you. It's like, really, follow your gut, do it, and this kind of opportunities made me 27 points.
Looks like Ben White's just got an assist, by the way.
Oh, get in. That's jam. Sorry for the listeners. It's live reaction. I think Vardy has been by far the best transfer of the season, maybe in a couple of seasons actually, with 27 points in 3 game weeks, I believe, made me ahead of the curve. So these kind of opportunities where people do want this player, but he has decent fixtures, made me think that I should do that more often. And something you said, that opportunities come in with players, especially in midfield or the attack. So yeah, quite happy with it. And I felt like I don't mind hits this season. I used to be cautious with hits last season, but with players with a massive upside, then I decided to take it for example, Cancelo. He had the 15 points in his pocket at some point, so I went for him even for the hit. Usually on defenders it's not worth it, but with certain players it might be worth it. And I feel like I've taken 3 or 4 hits this season, and luckily they've all worked out so
all
far.
paid off of that. No,
Yeah.
nice.
So far, yeah.
I've been. It's my first. I think it's my second hit in a row this week. 2 hits I've taken so far this season, and they've kind of washed their face. That's pretty much been it. But hopefully it will come where there's one big banger. No, cool. Interesting to hear that you've been thinking about what you've been doing, and having that targeting strategy is certainly something that I've heard a lot of people do as well, based on the last couple of years. Quick min league update. So our min league code is 2IP43T. Just got to sing it for my friend FPL Fairy Steve, who keeps asking me to do so. But yeah, no, a decent week in the min league. It's obviously not complete yet, so I can't give you I can't say these are all finalized results. But at the snapshot that I took about 15 minutes ago, that was before Arsenal just equalised, which is good for me on an FPL on a fan level. A bit annoying on an FPL level, so I lose 1 point. But anyway, the first min league is Ryan Mackey, 57 points this week. He brought in Cancelo as well, but he did also to finance that Jimenez to Adam Armstrong, who didn't play. Didn't start at least, so not the best of hits in the world. And back up second is Ryan Quinn, looking to reclaim that throne, but he took a weird decision this week, and he did a free hit. 65 points. He's just 3 points off his fellow Ryan now, but a valuable chip used. In third, up to third. Wow, what a week for Siddharth Pi's Pipers. 82 points on his wild card. Really fantastic week for him. The key drivers of this were your man Karam Vardy, Ben Chilwell, and KDB. So 3 really big differentials, less than 20% owned, driving that really nice score, all the way up from 89th, as I mentioned. In fourth, it's Benan Ramos still. No, not still. He's been in the top 10 for a while, but he was out of it for a while. Okay, so Josh M's up from 12th to 4th, 65 points this week. This all means Josue Creed loses his second spot. He's actually down to 5th now. His Game of Stones, just scoring 52 points. In 6th, up from 10th is Charles Woods. 7th, up from 21st, Rolf Anderson. And 8th, up from 13th, Maxim Malinovsky with FPL Ukraine. And joint 9th, Freeman joint 9th, is Christopher Marshall, 65 points. Harry Hubrick with 68 points. And Robin Lennon with 59 points. That seems a bit of a rubbish way to get a green arrow in the 50s this week. There are a few in the league this week, so it's just one of those sorts of weeks, isn't it, where it's all a bit down to which defenders you have, basically, which is unusual, to say the least. Unusual. Right, and then the final bit of this particular little section, the introductory section, is the market forces. And obviously things may change. We may see a Ben White influx if he's given this particular
I think
assist
taken away to Martinelli.
Let's see.
What a shame.
Let's see then. All right, but the market forces wise, I mean, your man Karam is in the lead at the moment. 228,000 people have just transferred in Jamie Vardy and finally getting the respect he deserves. He's been, there goes that differential. He's been bought heavily. Most of it was Spencer Ronaldo. So Ronaldo's been sold by 310,000 people. People have seen enough of the Portuguese maestro. We'll speak about that in just a bit. In second for transfers in, it's Ben Chilwell. After that, lovely 15-pointer. He's actually returned, scored 2 weeks in a row. So 135,000 transfers for him. Salah, how do you not own Salah? Okay, cool. 106,000 people have finally decided it's time to transfer in Salah.
He's good,
they've done so. Yeah, he looks all right. And they've sold the likes of Jota and Pogba, and both of nearing 100,000 sales to make that happen. And there's a lot of action, isn't there, Karam, in the defenders? So Azpilicueta and Cancelo have been brought in by almost 100,000, and Alonso and Rudiger, who didn't play this week, have been sold. What do you make of those market forces?
Yeah, I would say Vardy stand out from the list. I think it took us a couple of weeks to really get convinced that Vardy is becoming an option at a cheaper price compared to Ronaldo and Lukaku. I always thought that still there will be more purchase to Lukaku ahead of Norwich. But the results from Vardy over the last 3 game weeks doesn't surprise me in terms of the market forces. And I think his fixtures are still decent up until Christmas. To be fair,
yeah, they really are.
And Leicester, kind of a team who I felt in the Man United game, they are turning the table around. They are still leaky at the back, but finally Rodgers decided to play Nacho, which in my opinion makes a huge difference to their attack. So last season, Nacho on the field made Vardy worse. But this season, it seems that they are complementing each other. So I'm interested to see if Vardy runs out of gas by the next couple of games. And Nacho is really the deal.
Yeah, ready and waiting. Yeah,
exactly. As for Chilwell, I'm still not sure. I mean, Alonso has been great, and Chilwell as well. And I can easily see any one of them starts in the Premier League. Of course, they play midweek between now and the next international break, so it makes sense that each one of them takes a weekend or a midweek. But who knows?
Yeah, who does what?
Yeah, and it's not a surprise that a direct swap from Alonso to Chilwell, and then Alonso starts the next weekend against Norwich because he wants someone who plays.
Everyone else reverses it then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm not really encouraged myself on this, but as Azpilicueta and Cancelo, I think they made sense. I think we've talked about the big at the back and Chelsea and City defense for the last couple of game weeks, and I guess that aligns with the market forces flow towards these two players. So yeah,
makes sense. And the only other note I want to make, and this segues us nicely into the main theme, which we'll speak about in just a minute, is there's one player who's been bought pretty much as much as he's been sold. So Romelu Lukaku has been bought by 71,000 people, and he's also been sold by 77,000 managers. So his overall average sales are going to be probably around 0 by the end of the week. All right, let's take a break there and move on to the main topic just after this. So we're back, and it's time to move on to the main topic this week. And it's led by, as I mentioned earlier, a correspondence question. And this week is a correspondence question from Richard Saunders Irving, which links into the main thing we'll be speaking about. For those who don't know, correspondence is our weekly section, mostly pioneered by Anthony, where we hear from listeners who get in touch at length, mainly via our Gmail, whogottheassist@gmail.com, and ask us to look at something in depth. So questions, thoughts, theories, addendums, poems, songs, declarations of love. We will take it all and normally put it in the second half of the pod. But this week is up top, as Richard's question kind of feeds into what we're talking about. Richard did write in a little while ago, but I asked him if he could slightly adapt his question, and we came up with kind of this. So Richard said that after a good early start, around 70k, he'd started to slide down the ranks, and he says his decline has been due to his transfers. He says he's not too sure, what he does with his team currently, and he feels like he started deadening his team almost for the time being. I'm thinking, he says, just get good players and a good captain and leave them be. Is this just despondency, or is it maybe a viable option to do this? And I think that that's quite interesting, because we're hearing a lot at the moment about, especially with kind of the last few weeks, and how there's been kind of a lack of reliability in the premium kind of space, whether we can just kind of leave it, basically, principally of one man. The question I think that's worth asking this week, just because of how consistent he has been, is do we just captain Mo Salah up until the African Cup of Nations? And so do we give him a very long captaincy stint? Just to give you some data on this quickly. Salah is on 83 points at the moment. No, he didn't captain Firmino this week. That's his overall score thus far this season. But I did have a look at how this works out historically. Basically, it's dominance this season. So this year, he's 27 points ahead of his closest rival, who is Vardy, as we mentioned a second ago. 7 goals, 5 assists, and 13 bonus. He's only blanked once as well. So that game week 2 versus Burnley that Karam avoided with Mahrez. He's on 10.38 points per game after 8 game weeks, which is obviously a small sample, but decent enough just that we can mention it. That's his best start since he's been in the Premier League, bar none. So last year, he's 2020-21, he's scored 67 points by this point. He was third in the table behind Kane and Son, actually, so he wasn't top. As I think they kind of just were a little bit ahead of him. But last year, by this point, he scored 8 goals and 1 assist, so more goals, less assists, 8.38 points per game. He'd actually scored 16 points less than now. And then as you move further backwards, he scored less and less. So 2019-20, 55 points by this point. He's being outscored by Kun, Mane and KDB. He'd scored 4 goals and 3 assists, so less goals and less assists than this time. 6.88 points per game, 55 points is 28 points less than just now. In 2018-19, 41 points. So he was actually equal 17th by this point. No, he was being outscored by the likes of Edison, Ryan Fraser, and Lacazette. He scored just 3 goals and 2 assists, 5.25 points per game, 41 points, which is exactly, well, just under half what he's on at the moment. And in that big 303 season, people may be saying, you know what, Tom, surely that season he was doing better than now. No, he wasn't. So I haven't got the temporal data cuts in terms of knowing how well other players are doing at this point, but I do know that he was on 46 points by this time that season. So 37 points behind where he is now, 5.75 points per game. So just under half the amount of points per game. So yeah, this season, the takeaway is that Mo is on fire. At this rate, another 300 plus is on the line, despite the fact he's been missing a couple of points, a couple of games due to the African Cup of Nations. I mean, Karam, initially, what are your thoughts in terms of how Salah has performed this year?
Oh, remarkable, right? The numbers speak for themselves. And to put that into perspective, the likes of the mid-price midfielders, Mahrez, Son, but not last year, those kind of players who average 160, 170 points per season, he's now at 50% of the average of what those players can get the whole season. And we just finished less than a quarter of the season.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. And I've probably never seen something like this. I remember I can't remember a lot of players who've done that in that short period of time. That's insane. And naturally speaking, I'm not a person who sticks the captaincy every week. I like to use opportunities, the fixtures, to swap the captaincy, but he's not making it any easier. He's not allowing us to even think about it. Like the hot topic of the community this week, shall we captain him against Man United? Well, Lukaku plays Norwich. Like in normal situation, I would never think of that, but you can argue, you can do that. United kept only 1 clean sheet this season. They are at the moment all over the place, and Salah is just on fire. So I wouldn't be too surprised if I see a lot of managers have done that. To me, it's still hard for next game week, but look at the next game weeks: Brighton, West Ham, Arsenal, Southampton, Everton, Wolves. There's no game week where I was saying he might not score or return. Yeah. I think he can score against all of them. I think up to game week 18, where we get to Boxing Days and AFCON time in game week 21, that's the time where we might consider taking it off him. However, I feel like this, in a way, it brings a lot of consistency in terms of captaincy and one less decision to make every game week, but it might take away a bit of the fun of how to really be a bit maverick to gain some rank. Because if everyone is captaining Salah, then you pretty much rely on 10 players to make you the gain, and basically maybe 6 or 7 of them are template players highly owned by pretty much everyone around you. So you are left out by 2 or 3 options to gain the rank. And I think in game week 8 or 9 and 10, it's the time where you can assess your rank. The first 4 or 5 game weeks, we always say don't even look at it because it doesn't matter too much. The gap is too narrow. Now it's expanding, it's taking shape on where you are and how good you are doing at the moment. And after 10 game weeks, I think now is the time where you really need things to change. You need, for example, Salah to blank and captain, for example, Kane in game week 12, 13 to make that game. But at the moment, it's not easy at all. And it gives us a hard time to do that. Yeah. What do you think, Tom, of this? Are you tempted by just taking the captaincy on him?
Well, as you detailed, the fixtures are more than adequate until game week 21 when he goes to AFCON, basically. I mean, obviously, there's going to be the gaps in time, but can I see Klopp resting him for the benefit of Egypt? No, not really. Mm-hmm. And is he the sort of player who plays these sorts of games? I remember, didn't he play Mighty Land last year in a fixture that was a dead rubber for Liverpool? Just because he wanted to play. Like he's a bit like a Bruno Fernandes character where I can't really see the resting happening. Are the fixtures good enough at first glance? I've got a stat on United later. Are they good enough at first glance? Yes, in this sort of imperious form as well. Like he's basically scored the same goal twice, hasn't he? Versus a brilliant Man City defence and versus a subpar Watford defence. And Mikel's algorithm, is worth mentioning, would also say that he is kind of the also captain for the next few weeks. But you're right. Like if you start to think about the impact on FPL, if you're losing that sort of decision to take the captaincy and give it to whoever you will, because there's one player who's just so damn good, he's worth captaining. Maybe you would have seen this in the 303 season 5 years ago as well. It kind of pushes us to think, what sort of things is this going to do to us and our experience as managers of playing fantasy football for the foreseeable future, at least, because the captain's obviously super important. The last few seasons, as you see from me captaining who Mikel tells me to, like it's been a serious Achilles heel for me, and giving it to if basically Mikel's algorithm aligns with the fact that Salah's the easy captain, like the two things basically mean that you'll end up with an EO snowball. Not that those people are watching Mikel, but because he's doing so well week after week, only blank once, you end up with this EO snowball. People are going to captain him no matter what, effectively. So the impacts of that to me, I mean, you mentioned that 2 or 3 players in your team become super important. Differentials, you're completely right, become so important in our teams. Like we've got a question from FPL Elf later. But what's interesting is that there's only 3 players who are over 40% owned. Like Salah is so far above all of their ownership. And there's this kind of fluidity around the mid-price levels too. There's those players coming in and out of our teams, all these 5.5s, the 6.0s. And it's the importance of those kind of star players in live rank that become really important. And the other kind of couple of effects I just want to mention here are, one, I think it's really important to be able to spot opportunities to differentiate. I mean, I'm obviously confirmation biasing myself, but Trossard didn't do that well this week, yes. But I had an opportunity to make a difference with my team and go for an ultra differential. Trossard's owned by 1%. And he did have Norwich. I know people, late riser, I think as did as well, punted on Mopay. Like those sort of things, those sort of little if they come off, you're laughing, you really are. And linked to that, there's an importance of spotting good opportunities to sell as well if we're in a differential-driven sort of context. So Ben Rama could be, now I don't think I will be selling him because he was very good against Everton actually, but on a pure numbers game level, he could be a potential example of a player to sell. So he's 36% owned, including me, but the next 3 fixtures aren't amazing. And could he now be a fall guy to a player coming into good fixtures? So if you didn't have Mbuemo yet, could you take out a well-owned player like Ben Rama, buy a low-end differential like Mbuemo, and then see your rank rise? I mean, Karam, do you agree with all of that? Like, do you have any other sort of impacts you think that are going to happen?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the fact that we are potentially sticking the captaincy on Salah makes us a little bit more maverick. I need to do something a bit more maverick to increase my chances of a bigger gain. And it could be beneficial, but it can also fire back if you do really like maverick, not in your own way. This season, with fans coming back, we assume that the home and away will make a difference, especially with the premium players. I just looked quickly at Salah returns, and I can't see a clear distinction to, Salah has hold in the home, but not the away. He actually, in 4 matches at home, he has double digits, and in 3 of them, the only time he didn't even return was Burnley. But also in the 4 away matches, he had a double-digit returns in 2 of them. And guess what? It's against Norwich and Watford, who expectedly they are not good defensively. So in a way, I can tell that Salah at home pretty much nailed for the captaincy. Perhaps for the away ones, you really need to be targeting a team where just really mid-table or even lower when it comes to the defensive statistics. I think Salah can cover both aspects. If you look at the next game weeks, he plays Man United away. Yes, they are not good defensively this season, but historically they have been really cagey and masters in pulling away nil-nils in big games, and we don't have enough data for the season to suggest that this is changing. So am I gonna captain Salah against Man United? I'm still at the side of a no,
Right.
but I can see a huge argument for that. Then the next away game is West Ham. Are they bad defensively? Probably not as bad as Watford or Norwich. So there might be also a case where you can still punt on the game which where Salah plays away against teams that are like top or mid-table teams, like West Ham playing in Europe, Man United is a Champions League team playing for the title potentially, and all of that. But against Everton, I think Liverpool had a history of lack of goals. I think the last one was not, but generally. So for the next away games, I'll be a bit cautious actually.
Okay.
For the home ones, I think it will be relatively easy. Yeah. Unless say Lukaku playing Norwich next game week.
Yeah, let's think about what's been corralling us into this situation. Yeah. I mean, I would probably kind of have sympathy for the idea of captaining Salah every game week, but that I'm just trying to cut through whether that is kind of something which is just based off the fact the last couple of weeks have been so effing good. 13 points that we didn't all get against City versus those 13 points we did get against Watford. In fact, he's not blanked the season apart from that Burnley game. And it makes me kind of wonder, and we also have a few questions on this, are the premiums otherwise in crisis? Well, I mean the premiums that we've all owned, which are the Ronkaku double up. And we've got some questions on this as well. So, maybe it speaks to both sides of the debate too. So, people did go for the freemium, they had Ronaldo, Lukaku and Salah. Other people like me were doing the sort of aggressive kind of switcheroo strategy. So I had Ronaldo out for Lukaku last week. And we had a few questions on this. The two really good ones though. FPL Chimp Paradox basically says, how long do we give the premiums if we're in the freemium, especially on Lukaku, given the recent blanks? When do we pull the plug on that strategy? And on the other side of it, FPL Osmo actually and I were talking about the aggressive premium strategy. I mentioned that a few times. We'll go into that in just a second. But Adam Pritchard on our Slack asked the same thing. So he said, premium Lukaku is his plan, but he's wondering how long to persist with it. Let's take the first part of that though, the freemiums. Is the freemium setup dead? I think, I'll see what you think in a second, Karam, but I think because of the City defence and Chelsea defence being so important or so interesting, maybe again that's recency just because this week was so good, plus Trent being back on the map and the likes of Son pushing onto the scene, I think the call for having Ronaldo and Lukaku and Salah in your team has receded. People are becoming less interested in that, especially Lukaku, especially Ronaldo. So United are in disarray, a very small sample set, but Ronaldo over the first 3 games in the Premier League was averaging 5.66 shots and 1.66 big chances per game. The last couple of games, he's only had a couple of shots per game on average. FPL points rise, in 5 games, Ronaldo has scored 24 points. His fellow deadline signing, Cucurella, has matched him, and Hwang, another one who was signed on deadline day, has actually outscored him. And he's also, over the last 5 game weeks, I'm aware he's not been in the league the whole time. Over the last 5 game weeks, he's been outscored by players such as Ogbonna, Michael Keane, Zaha, Tielemans, and he's been matched by Timo Pukki. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has not played since game week 3 and is 1 point behind Ronaldo. But it's Ronaldo. Yes, it is. But he's certainly not worth your cash, I don't think, Karam. I mean, if you're a freemium manager or giving advice to a freemium manager now, would you be saying, you know what? I mean, you sold Ronaldo for Lukaku this week, so it seems like you're kind of following my strategy. But do you think the freemium's just come to its natural conclusion now?
Yeah, I think to me, the freemium has actually never been an option to me, even when Lukaku and Ronaldo has joined. I think we have a bit of an experience from last season where we have been tempted to get, the KDB of the back of a great season, I think, Salah and Kane, and we struggled and we couldn't do it. And we really concluded that we hindered the rest of the team by having the freemium. I think this time, even if it's Ronaldo, even if it's Lukaku, you look at the returns the last 4 game weeks, they all blanked. 4-2s for both Ronaldo and Lukaku. And that's not what you expect from 11.5 to 12.5 million strikers. The only one who has been firing was Salah, and this game week and Vardy the last 3, and Kane this game week. Now, I think the premium is done and dusted for me. I think there is a big case for shipping them out to show you a bit how Lukaku in particular is in a crisis. In terms of attempts for shots, there are 22 strikers have more shots than Lukaku. Do you want me to name a few of them? Alan Saint-Maximin. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Adam Armstrong.
He takes loads of shots. That's okay. I can deal with that.
Mope.
Yeah,
Rodrigo.
He also does. Okay, Rodrigo. That's fine.
Rodrigo. Pukki. Jordan Ayew.
Jordan Ayew?
Yeah.
What's this time period?
Last 4 game weeks. So the game weeks where Lukaku has blanked. Dennis, your guy, third striker.
God, yeah. Yellow card magnet Dennis, yes.
Rondon.
Rondon? Oh,
did he score? No, he didn't. Joe Linton.
Joe Linton? Had more shots than Lukaku the last 4. Okay.
Yeah, and a guy who played only 90 minutes this season is Broja of Southampton. Yeah. All of them had more than 6 shots in the last 4 game weeks, and Lukaku has less than that. It's worrying. It's concerning, and I think I don't know if it's something to do with the setup of Chelsea to feed the striker. We've said or noticed that they are missing Mount, but Mount was back last game week. We just don't know. The only caveat to this, and I will still buy Lukaku if I don't have him, just because he plays Norwich. I think this is, I would. For the next 3, I would still buy him. I wouldn't buy him along with Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo is a sell. I don't know if there is something that is called 2.5 premiums, if you consider the 10 million as midfielders or strikers. But I like the setup having Son or Vardy. Depends on how you define.
Yeah, I mean, hold that thought for a moment, I think, because we'll come on to that in just a sec. But this the aggressive sort of premium thing where we're both at the moment, like that's something which people have been looking at a fair bit. And obviously, we both sold Ronaldo either last week or the week before. This week's got Liverpool. Next week it's got Tottenham. Game week 11, Man City. Game week 12 against Watford. I mean, I don't think I'm just going to be high enough to bother me there. Game week 13 against Chelsea. So he's playing Liverpool, Spurs, Man City, and Chelsea in the next 5. Okay, maybe you're not too worried about Spurs, but any player who's playing Liverpool, Man City, and Chelsea in the next 5 game weeks is one that I'm not worried at all about not owning.
I wouldn't captain him, so what would be the point? Yeah,
exactly. But I'm not going to be captaining Lukaku. I don't think either. But nonetheless, he's got the 3 teams, in the relegation places next: Norwich, Newcastle, and Burnley. So if there's any time for him to turn around,
it's this time. Yeah,
it's this time. And then his fixtures stiffen as you get to game week 12. But then Kane has got Leeds, Burnley, Brentford, and Norwich. So you can do the swap. And then in game week 16, Man United's fixtures get better. So you can get Ronaldo back in for Norwich, Brentford, Brighton, Newcastle, Burnley, and Wolves, etc., etc. Of course, you could be buying Son instead of Kane, and you could be buying Bruno instead of Ronaldo. I'm actually minded to look at Bruno more. Did you know he created the most chances last game week? He's created 8 against Leicester, and over the last 6, he's created the most chances in the Premier League. So he's second for chances created. He's third for shots, albeit only 6th in the box, and 6th for XGI. But I'm fairly wedded to giving Lukaku a couple more weeks, at least 3 more weeks, because those fixtures are so good. And Chelsea are a great team; they really are. And Lukaku was not great against Brentford. That's true. But I mean, he was the highest XGI underperformer versus Southampton. Don't forget, he was marginally offside for that Rudiger setup.
He hit the post.
Hit the post and he could have got an assist as well. That's Aspilicueta had his shooting boots on.
Yeah,
he's the second highest underperforming striker over the last 4 game weeks. Only Antonio has underperformed more. So I still think, in answer to Adam's question earlier on, that the strategy is still worth doing to have your second premium being kind of on facing the fixtures. But I still kind of, I can still understand why you kind of be looking at that kind of those kind of premium alternatives that you've mentioned, Karam? Because I mean, Charlie Roberts wrote in and said, can you discuss Jamie Vardy, please? I love the man. I feel like he deserves more credit than he does currently. And your setup, I guess, with Vardy, I mean, he's not going anywhere. And Karam was one of these people who I think he said initially, oh yeah, no, give me X hundred likes and I'll captain.
Yeah, 300. Yeah.
And you got captain Vardy, and that went really well. And you kind of brought Vardy on that sort of kind of, you knew what you were doing, but also kind of wanted a bit of a push from the community. You got it. And Vardy has been a revelation, hasn't he, for you? So these premium alternative kind of players like Vardy, like Son, maybe like Kane putting his hand up now, maybe like KDB as well. I mean, what do you think about these sort of guys, Karam? I mean, especially Vardy, like you were talking about just a second ago, that kind of setup with Vardy in, could that be a huge differential for people?
Yeah, I think so. I think until now, they are really differentials. I think Vardy will be the next one who will be more of a popular pick. But I think it's really hard, even with the budget and the setup, to get to Son. I think it's easier to get to Kane from Ronaldo, from Lukaku. And I think that will be the next template where people will be going on Kane based on the fixtures. And regardless of the crisis that we mentioned with stats wise on Lukaku, I think the next three are the game weeks where he can even it out and put in some nice stats and goals, which we want. But I think there is really a strong case for going for Vardy up until the Christmas. There is a strong case for going for Kane based on the fixture swing in game week 12. It would be harder to get the premium midfielder if you consider Son as a premium 10 million plus or so. He's really a decent alternative, and he doesn't hinder the setup as much as if you have Mane, for example, with 2 million extra. I think Mane also is someone, I think there was one of the questions we say, what about Mane and Salah? Salah 7 goals for the season, Mane is 5. So he's a bit under the radar because Salah is so phenomenal with everything he does, even show-wise. But Mane is also someone who we shouldn't forget. We've been focusing on Jota because he's cheaper. He is kind of
going to AFCON as well. That's the thing. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, he's just not worth it because of how good Salah is, and you're right to draw the distinction between the fact that Son is 1.8 million less than Mane, but he's outscoring Mane this year. He outscored him last year. He was a 200 club member last year.
Yeah.
So.
And we are not surprised, right? Son always does that. Always a 200 points candidate for the last couple of seasons, at least. You've got better numbers on Son than me, but he's always going to be up there, regardless of Tottenham form or how the season has been for them. Son is one of the players that Mr. Consistent, you know what you get from him. So we'll never say no to Son as if fit. So these provide really decent alternatives, especially with the fixtures coming up.
I like it. I really like it. I mean, there's another guy that I think is worth mentioning here, just because Anthony brought him in this week, and I'm sure he would be waxing lyrical to defend himself about it. That Anthony brought in Timo Werner this week, as I mentioned in the kind of the updates. I know that late riser went that way as well, I believe. I mean, that is probably the prime example of that ultra differential that I spoke about earlier on as an impact of captaining Salah the whole time. Like, owning a player like that who is explosive, I think it is in Werner to have a great day where everything goes right and he ends up getting a hat trick, but just 2.2% owned. I mean, that kind of player, Karam, I guess is very similar to Vardy and Son in that they could do something. It's just that Vardy and Son have got that pedigree. They have been returning this year. I mean, these sort of big ticket gambles, do you think that that's kind of the ultimate extension of what could happen if we're all captaining Salah? Like, if we've got Salah, we've got like a Son or a Vardy, we've got a bit of money left over to play with, could we end up with these sort of, high stakes gambles becoming more part of the way people play?
Yeah, it can potentially lead to that. I think it will still be hard to fit in more of those players at once, given that many of us are or already invested at Man City and Chelsea defenders who cross 5.5 plus. I think that will be really tough to accommodate all of them. But here comes the fact that you've got Salah, you've got the captaincy sorted potentially. Yeah. Here comes a swap. If you really fancy a shot on KDB or a Son for a couple of game weeks, you don't mind swapping Vardy, for example, for a Son for 2 transfers and then swap it back when fixtures improve. So you kind of be able to do things you're not used to do. For example, I think we used to get a player for a run of fixtures. Form is out, sell him, never look back. But it gives you this opportunity to actually target it more of like game week by game week or 2 weeks by 2 weeks. And that's something, for example, Ronaldo has Watford in game week 12. Everybody will be looking at Kane game week 12 versus Leeds, but maybe Ronaldo versus Watford, even if it's away, could be gold for this. So these kind of swaps, when you have less opportunity, less decisions to make on the defense, on Salah, it gives you that extra bit where you can make it ground elsewhere, even on the premiums, even on the alternatives. I think this season will be really about making these swaps at the right time, which is not gonna be easy. I don't think Vardy will score 8 points every game week, but when can I catch that and make the swap? That's the real deal for me and for many other managers who are looking this way.
I guess it echoes what I said earlier on about making sure you're jumping on and jumping off at the right time, effectively finding those differential kind of opportunities and also getting rid of the high-owned players, perhaps, when there's a good time. To round this bit off, do we just captain Mo Salah up until AFCON, Karam? Well, I mean, long term, I've got huge sympathy for it, and I will be strongly considering it. But as we kind of both touched on earlier on, Lukaku versus Norwich this week felt so blindingly obvious that both of us bought Lukaku in over the last couple of weeks. But now, is it? It will be very close. There's a huge case for Salah. And I kind of wonder if he will be a differential this week, because maybe people will see United as a good defence due to legacy rather than in terms of recent information. One stat for you, over the last 4 game weeks, only 2 sides have a higher XGC than Norwich, Watford and Man United.
Wow. I mean, okay, I totally get the argument of captaining Salah, but let's put it in another perspective. Where is the regret going to be higher if you captain Salah and Lukaku bangs, or the other way around? I feel, to me, I'll be saying, it's obvious, Lukaku versus Norwich. Even if Salah returns, I'll be saying, well, that might be just a bonus or a plus or something. I will feel more disappointed in myself if I don't captain Lukaku and returns than captain Salah and doesn't. That's the way I feel. I think part of it is going to be psychology, but mentally, or courage to do that. I think for the rest of the game weeks, there is a big case for it, and I agree with that. Maybe for the next game week, it will be still tough one. I'll keep it open.
Like it's like
I feel like I'm gonna captain Lukaku at the end.
I'm gonna do whatever the algorithm tells me. I think it's an interesting one this week to have that kind of get out rather than have to do the 50-50, because it's so close. But it would be so obvious if it was just you were telling an alien, okay, you've got a former, you've got to play a team with the gravitas of Man United that captain is playing versus Norwich, who've just been promoted. Like, as you say, like, surely it's really obvious that Norwich could get turned over very strongly by Chelsea. Like, I don't think I'm kind of. It's one of those where you have to almost have to stand back and try to be as objective as possible about what you're seeing. And I think that maybe I will be captaining Lukaku. But I mean, I'm going to do whatever the algorithm tells me, frankly. But...
I mean, Salah captain, as we'll say, well, it's also obvious he's averaging 11 points per game, and he's scored 13 against City, so he can do that. And that's the hard part of Salah captaincy.
So up until AFCON then, Karam, after the Man United game, do you have sympathy for the view that he could be the permanent captain? Like, I'm going to go with the algorithm, and I will probably be living out this sort of idea of just captaining Salah every single week, because as far as I can see on the algorithm, every week he's the winning midfielder because of that sort of near guarantee of a return. I mean, you've mentioned kind of the opportunity of going against him, especially perhaps away. I mean, do you have any sympathy for the idea of just captaining him every week, or do you think there's an opportunity in that?
Yeah, I think there is a case to captain him almost every game week. I don't think that I am going to do that. I still think that, for example, game week 9, I'm gonna twist the Salah captaincy.
Right.
I think in game week, well, I'm looking at the table you just shared, game week 15, Kane against Norwich. I think that's a twist.
The Wolves away for
Yeah,
Salah. Yeah.
yeah. I think Salah can take Southampton over Kane against Burnley. No problem with that. I think game week 16 will be close. Maybe also Salah over Kane. 17 Salah. I actually feel like maybe only 2 game weeks where I will twist. Game week 12 is a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
Arsenal and Leeds, yeah, maybe both score. I think only 2 game weeks until 17 where I would be tempted by twisting the captaincy of Salah, which is still incredibly high, right? Like,
yeah, that's still such a long time as well.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
You're basically saying that apart from this week, like it's not a big finding that Salah's an amazing captaincy option, but it is very interesting to see the sort of dominance by one individual, especially given the numbers I spoke about at the start of the podcast.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much for that. Let's take a break there and move on to the correspondence. No questions to speak. Let's move on to the questions just after this break. So we're back and it's time to move on to listener questions this week. We had quite a few. Some of them obviously did show up in the earlier section as usual, but there are a few outstanding ones just to go into off a bit of a muted sort of game week in some ways, just because that defense being so good. And we obviously have a question on that in just a bit. But the first one is go on, leave me Brentless. Yes, it's about Brentford. It's Benny Blanco who cropped up in DM this week. First off, who said that Brentford's relentless display, being relentless, lol, is the double up of. Does that mean the double up of Mbeumo and Tony could be a way to go? They've been really, really good. And he asks as well, if you can only pick one, who is a better option? FPL Reaper asks the same question. Is the double up too much? And the season keepers say is Mbeumo himself due to shoot up to the top of watch lists when those woodwork batterings start to convert into goals. Now, Karam, I did a bit of work on this. I noted, of course, that Mbeumo had hit the woodwork 6 times this season, 5 more than any player. Loads are actually on 1. So he's got 6. Everyone else has got 1. He's quite the specialist. Do you think that any player over the last 10 seasons has hit the woodwork as many times as he has after game week 8?
No, I don't think so.
No, you're right.
It's no. My answer would be no.
Okay. And the closest actually is so he's hit the woodwork more times than any player ever over the last 10 years after 8 game weeks. The closest is Kane in 2017-18, who hit the woodwork 5 times. Last year, Trossard hit the woodwork 4 times over this point last year. But before that, you're looking at, Kun 2018-19, Leroy Fer 2014-15 hitting the woodwork 3 times. And then every other year, the likes of Rash, Jimenez 2019-20, Wilshere and Wilson 2016-17, Sanchez 2015-16, Van Persie 2013-14, and 2011-12, and the likes of Russell Martin, Jagielka, and David Silva 2012 and 13 hitting the woodwork all times 2. So unprecedented how much Mbeumo has hit the woodwork this year. But I digress. We'll talk about the double up in a minute. But obviously a couple of people have a couple of questions were around kind of Mbeumo and Ben Blanco said, which one would you get if you had to get one? Season keeper said, is he going to be pushing up the watch lists? And Mbeumo is actually second for non-pen XG so far this season. Just 0.02, Karam, off Lukaku. He's also the 4th highest underperforming player. Traore Trinsao and Elianusi join in there. There's all that woodwork, but the heat map and the shot heat map are all very central, always looking for that second ball. And if you throw Mbeumo and Tony into a comparison metrics via the hub or via the scout, Tony wins out on creativity. He's on pens, but in terms of pen box touches, attempted attempts numbers and frequency, Mbeumo's ahead. If you factor in, I think that 0.9 million difference as well between the two of them, I just kind of think that Mbeumo is better value at the moment if you are picking one. If you're picking one, Karam, which way would you go?
With the availability of other options in attack, I would, from a strategical perspective, I would go Mbuemo, even as a player, even as an out of position 5.5, perhaps 5.6 now, midfielder. I think his value will be ridiculous. I think he didn't kick in yet with with the woodwork, but that certainly will convert into goals. And the fixtures back that up. I don't have anyone from Brentford, but I'm considering even the triple up with a new goalkeeper because I'm fed up with Melier. Then I might go for Raya, Mbuemo,
Feel
and
that,
Tony.
man.
So
Feel that. Looking at Gravitas Araya in 2 weeks,
yeah,
just like, oh yeah, could
yeah.
definitely do that. Just
I,
get
I
rid of
need
Grazer.
I,
Oh,
I need
hate
some
that
tips
guy.
from you on a goalkeeper transfer.
No, you don't. You don't want tips from me. This is the opposite. Anyway, we digress. Keep going,
Yes,
Mbuemo.
yes, Mbuemo. So the next fixtures, he plays Leicester, which I don't think it's a too bad fixture from an attacking perspective, and Burnley, Norwich, Newcastle, Everton. So for almost 12 million or even less, you get two attacking players with what I think really incredible value. Why not even both of them?
Yeah.
Now the question would be, okay, Tony will come at the expense of whom? Now, to me, I actually think with the setup I have, it will be Antonio, believe it or not. Yeah. But his stats regressed really in the last 5 games compared
But
to the
he
first
he also
three.
is the highest underperforming striker over the last 4 weeks, though.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. And I, that's the thing. If you need to pick up one and you really are sticking with Antonio, then I think there is a bigger opportunity to get Buemo 5.5. Not many options at that price, and
Yeah.
he's not. I don't think he's a player where in 2-3 games time you'll be I want to ship him out for someone else, and you will start to find an alternative. I think from what we've seen from an eye stats and the fact that he hit the post many times, that represents another fact that he is playing in really decent positions in a decent team attacking wise. I think there is more to come from him. But I wouldn't mind both of them. I think Tony and Buemo are both decent for value. I don't think it will hinder the structure of the team. The question you have to decide on is, okay, Tony, Lukaku, perhaps, and who's the third one? Is it Antonio? Is it a Vardy?
I mean, could you take the fifth midfielder out of the equation though? Because I mean, you could. There's always kind of just saying, right, and Buemo is your fourth midfielder.
At least,
Tony's your third striker, and your fifth midfielder is like a Brownhill or something like that.
Yeah, or Alan Deep.
It's definitely Alan Deep. It's so doable. I mean, the Brentford attack data hasn't quite set the world alight, but considering they've played Chelsea, Liverpool, and they're very defensive Brighton already, being 8th for non-pen XG is really nothing to be concerned about. And they're big underperformers as well in areas. So unrealized XA for them is actually really high. I mean, Leicester, Burnley, Norwich, Newcastle next 4 aren't brilliant, as you mentioned, but Norwich, Newcastle have seen more goals than other team. Norwich's defensive data isn't great. At the price, though, that is really interesting, especially with, as you infer, the quiet Antonio, and as I spoke about earlier, a quiet Benrahma hanging around. Like, could there be a nice sort of fixture that shift into the Brentford pickup? I mean, as a Reaper kind of asked about that, didn't he? He said, is double up too much? I mean, for me, I'm probably going to leave it be in the 4-4-2 for the moment, but I've got Christensen, and I'm kind of, I can't lie that I'm looking at moving Christensen. I could move Christensen to Livramento and upgrade Dennis to Tony next week. And if I roll this week, which I'm very much looking at doing, and I can't lie, I've listed that several times with covetous eyes. Like, I think that would be one that I really like to do, and kind of revert to a pretty vanilla 3-4-3. I think that probably be okay, especially because the fixtures are okay. And from the eye test, I mean, as I said, the 8th non-pen XG thus far this season, but to the eye as well, they're creating a lot. They're doing pretty well. They play on the front foot. And they have played some fairly kind of defensively strong teams. So I'm not going to say no or close the door to the double attack.
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at the setup again, we've seen many managers are moving bigger at the back. Maybe at least they have 4 defenders to play with, and that makes it like a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3. Question is, can you consider Mbuemo as a third midfielder? I would imagine that the likes of Rafinha,
Oh,
Jota, if you still have them, maybe they would be the second one. It looks a bit
going
thin.
very big at the back, aren't you? If he's your third midfielder.
Yeah, yeah. Would you consider Mbeumo as a third midfielder? I think there's a case for a yes. I just wouldn't like it too much to have a two midfielders of a 4.5. I tried that at the beginning of the season, but clearly I was short in terms of the benches and so on. I've been impressed with Livramento, but I doubt that there is another option in attack or in midfield that can do what he does. So
yeah,
I think in a setup where you go three at the back, Mbeumo is edging it a bit. But if you go four at the back, maybe there is a case for going for Tony. Tony, still, he has penalties, right? So
he does, yeah. It's not quite happened Brentford yet. But okay, cool.
Cool.
Well, hopefully that answers all you guys' questions. Move on to the next one, which is a temp break. So FPL Elf is wondering whether now is the time to shoot for the moon with differentials. He's wondering if there's any better time to attack the template than now. He points out that and amongst midfielders and forwards, you've got, as I mentioned earlier, 3 players above 40% owned, so Salah, Antonio, and Ronaldo. And then you've got Benrahma and Lukaku and 36% each. And then you go all the way down to Bruno, 24, and then it's all sort of an even playing field. He says that up until now, all but Salah have returned peanuts in the last 3 game weeks at least. So he says, is now the great opportunity to climb the ranks and reap the rewards from players under 20% owned? Or could it be a fast track, he says, to red arrows? I think this touches on what you were saying earlier about Vardy, 17.7% owned and the second highest scorer. You've got Son as well down there. Even down to the discussion of Mbeumo a second ago, where we said all this about him, and he's just 2.9% owned. So maybe an FPL friendly, the FPL community that is friendly own, but the masses haven't quite jumped on yet. I mean, I think overall, is it the time to punt like mad? I think we're quite bunched up. And I mentioned this earlier on in that spotting those opportunities to jump on a player. Obviously didn't work out with me this week with Trossard, but jumping on a situation like that where you can get that kind of immediate explosion, and also jumping off players at the right time, likes of Benrahma, likes of Antonio, they become so important now, especially if, as we spoke about earlier on, Salah becomes the captain, do not jaws. I mean, Anthony, as I said earlier, during the likes of late riser on that Werner train. I mean, what do you think about kind of making those big punts against the template, Karam? We kind of touched on this already, but anything you'd add on that?
Yeah, pretty much we echo what we mentioned earlier in the pod. I think the opportunities are there now. The boat has not sailed yet. I think there are still opportunities to come. There's some opportunity with the likes of Vardy, for example. I keep mentioning it. I promise I won't. But he's someone who has kicked in 3 game weeks ago. I think you have to find a bit of a balance. Depends on how maverick you are or how brave you are. You have to find a balance between keeping some of those template players. They are a template players for a reason, right? Antonio always has the ability to deliver. So you can't go without, I would say, Lukaku, Antonio, Salah, for example, all of them out. No, I think that's a bit too much. But find the right balance. Don't have too many punt players in your team. Might be the way to go. I like the opportunities that's coming up. I think there will be a natural shift with Kane in game week 12. How much he is like 5%, something like that.
Nowhere near 20%, that's for sure.
No, yeah. So Kane, Son would be players that people will look at the expense of whom? Maybe Lukaku, maybe Ronaldo. So over the time there will be natural shift. I don't think these players will keep their ownership.
Would you be saying to just ride it out now then, and just say, you know what, we're now at a time where you've got this kind of situation as it is, and then in the future there will be an opportunity to differentiate? So would your advice just to be, ride out at the moment, don't break cover? Because it kind of sounds like that's where you are.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I think that's a great way to gain some ranks. Of course, it brings a risk of losing ranks if those players come back to returning. But with the current form of these players, I think there is a strong case to move over them.
Okay.
To other players.
So you would say to them moves them.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think this links nicely into the City midfielder angst.
Oh,
So FPL Richard and FPL Banger both asked about City mids. So Rich went with Mahrez for 1 week plan,
oh my
whereas a
goodness.
Banger asks if we should just skip the City midfield altogether and go for the likes of Son instead. So and
Yeah.
I've been burnt by this. I had Varane obviously, and I was hoping that he would play tapped out this week. But I'd have probably gone for Foden if I could have afforded it.
Mm.
I told Hindi Monkey actually, Karam, to buy Bernardo Silva. He ignored
Did
me.
you?
He
Oh my
ignored
goodness.
me, and he now
What a
looks like a
shame.
fool. He's in the mud. He's in the mud. I did know a couple of people also punted on Gundogan. Grealish is the highest owned, but I
Yeah,
guess you know you're getting into the City midfielders, right? I mean, they've got
yeah,
11 different goal scorers so far this season, and
yeah.
in a 5-0 win, you're just as likely to get an assist as you are a brace. So I just
Mm.
wonder if it's worth dispensing with lineup jitters, around 11:55 on Saturday afternoon, and just think, nah, it's over. I'm done. I'm happy with Cancelo. I mean, what? I mean, you're a big City fan. For those who don't know, I mean, what's your view on the City mids? I mean, is it even worth going there if you're not going to shell out for De Bruyne?
It's tough. I mean, last week before the what was the game? Burnley game. The customary the what should have been a customary 5-0 win that didn't happen. I was a strong advocate for Torres, as people listened to the Scoutcast last year, which before we hear about the news, I was really tempted to do Sar to Torres myself. And then when we hear the news, I was like, oh, I'm jealous. I can't switch to Mahrez because of the funds, and I can't do that without a minimum of -8. And I didn't do that, and I got away with it. I mean, at this situation, if you didn't buy any of them, I don't think that you're gonna
Yeah,
buy now. I think the strong run is 3 game weeks. You buy now for Brighton, Crystal Palace after the Champions League games. You already kind of gonna miss the roulette. It will hit you in one of the two, so it makes you might
yeah,
end up with that pick 0 out of 2 or 1 out of 2 instead of 2 out of 3, which is acceptable. And then you will look at somewhere else with Man United away. Maybe Everton home is a good fixture, but will you keep him before that? I think with the other players that we discussed, like a Son, like the other strikers, that I think if you have one of them, I would keep. They are kind of don't buy, don't sell at the moment. But if you really are keen on jumping early on a Sun, for example, I don't mind that move. Uh, you might be able to be ahead of the curve potentially with
yeah,
Sun, for example.
yeah.
So that's my view. I'm content when it comes to them. But if you have a plan, if you are determined to go Maris to Mount in game week 9, then just do it. I think it's a decent fixture. I wonder about Mount if he is fully fit to play again. I think he made a cameo last game week, so I'm not sure what's the situation now with him. But against Norwich, it's still a discussion. We don't know who are the front three, right? We assume it's gonna be Lukaku, Mount, and a third, Kai, Ziyech, Werner. Maybe not even Mount. Maybe it would be deeper. So it's still a lot of things around Mount. Well, coming back to the original question, I think I will hold for one more. Give him the Brighton
Yeah,
one.
I think you said that don't buy, don't sell is key there. I'm
Yeah,
quite happy to be out of it, and I'm not really looking at buying
yeah,
another one in.
no,
There's obviously great rewards to be had if you get the right one, but the
yeah,
diversity in goal scorers and the unreliability of any of those players probably just kills it for me. But yeah, no,
yeah,
definitely one which has obviously been there, but now that Burnley game's
yeah,
gone, I'm less
yeah,
interested. The
yeah.
final one this week is defensive futures. So FPL Jack, a shout out to FPL Jack. He's been a bit unwell recently, but he's a top guy. I've met him a couple of times in my FPL meetup life. I hope he gets better soon. But he asked if Big at the Back is here to stay. Or it's just a fad, Karam. And FPL Bean Counter asks a question along the same lines, saying that because obviously this week the Chelsea and City heavy defense is all the rage, but there was some heavy rotation. And presumably Chelsea, they're really good not playing, for example. Um, could there be some value defenders later on the line that will catch our eye? What do you think about this? really from the beginning. I mean, do you think Big at the Back is just a bit of a fad at the moment, or do you think that it's here to stay?
Yeah, I think it's real. I think it's a thing now. If you look at the top points scorers so far from the defenders, they are from City, Liverpool, and Chelsea, and you find the mix Duffy, Pinnock, and Janssen. But apart from that, they are really players from three teams, pretty much, right? Looking at City defense stats, they are scary. They don't allow shots. You don't come inside the box. You just too good at the back. So I think the investment in them is never too late. Just to link with the previous question, I think the attack I'll be content, but it's never too late to invest in the defense. Same goes for Chelsea, although as I read last night, their defensive stats were not good enough, but they sort of get away with these clean sheets. But I hope these kind of things improve with a couple of fixtures coming up. I think you can grow 3 players plus Trent. So there's a case for 4 players, double City or Chelsea and
really
Trent.
Is, you look at that's what I've got. Yeah, I've got Christensen, Aspilicueta, Cancelo, and Trent. Obviously, Christensen's 5, so it's a bit different. But yeah, no, I'm along those lines.
Yeah, I think otherwise, I don't have that setup. I have White as Ben White as kind of an enabler. I have a City coverage. I have a Trent, and I have Ben White rotating with. No, I wouldn't mention Williams. He's not playing. But yeah, Livramento. That's the one. So if I'm gonna bring another one, I would probably try and stretch to them. But if the setup does not permit, then there might be a few options where with good fixtures that really can come in. I think someone is a bit under the radar is Chalobah of Chelsea at 5 million. He's getting decent minutes. At 5 million, he's a type of player you can digest.
I wish he didn't exist. Because I Christensen owner, so it's exactly the same sort of level. So Christensen's seems to have signed a contract recently, so I'm hoping that he's kind of higher up the pecking order.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think of the budget defenders, like the less than 5 million? Are you still keen on the likes of Wolves defenders? You've got Cody, for example.
Definitely not. I mean, I think that in answer to the first question, I think big at the back, as you said earlier. I mean, usually I think it's a thing now. I think for the next 3 weeks, I think Jack originally answered that question. I'd say it's a fad in some senses, but for the next 3 weeks, it's definitely there. That's just because I mean, I guess up until the next international break over the next 3 weeks. Having a assist defender for 3 easy-looking games, Brighton, Palace, and United, that they're all looking easy at the moment. It's not looking great. And Chelsea defender for 3 easy-looking games, and Norwich, Newcastle, and Burnley owning one of them or 2 of them, 3 of them looks pretty logical. But I guess in terms of those kind of cheaper players, I mean, maybe there's a bit of a faith shaken this week, which is a little bit kind of out of the ordinary because Rudiger didn't play. Diaz came off the bench. If that's probably not going to be the normal outcome,
I don't think it would happen anything. No, it will not happen very often.
Yeah, I think both those players are likeliest to be playing. My only kind of thing with these sort of the low price filler sort of picks are that it's better to go with the ownership percentages, which I tried to do in game week 4 when I wildcarded in Cody, because I think that you go to Maverick, you end up like me with a less owned player. But what you also see is that you have basically everybody else. I mean, you don't see it because you've got Livramento. What I see is that I'm literally looking at the Southampton games now, and I'm hoping that Southampton concede because I know that there's millions of a load of people who are hoping for a Livramento clean sheet. So in these sorts of situations, I think it's best to go with the percentages, actually. So I'd be looking at Duffy or be looking at Livramento. The fixtures are better for Livramento. I think he's the 3rd highest owned below 4.5 million defender. I go with him 100% and just kind of just get out of any sort of negativity because there's enough validity in getting more expensive defenders. So for the filler, you want to just kind of go with the filler, which is going to cover your bum when things go wrong. One thing I would note is that Burnley, I think, will eventually emerge from this malaise and start churning out clean sheets. Not interested this side of the IB, but from game week 12 up until game week 20, they play teams in and around them and no top four team. So the likes of Luton and my man Charlie Taylor could show up again in teams. All right, let's move on to our transfers and captains, Karam, and get that out of the way. I'll go first because I'm really boring this week. So I've probably going to roll the transfer this week. So I've got Guaita in goal. Blah. I'll give him one more week because he's playing Newcastle at home. If they concede in the last minute again, Karam, I'm going to actually rage. No, I'm kidding. But I will laugh harder, but I will be selling him. But yeah, worst transfer ever. But I'll give him one more week to Newcastle.
I think you will encourage me to sell my Meslier as well on the same week you do that. So when you do it, let me know. So I can rage with you.
This means for both of us. I mean, you got Wolves at home for Meslier. I've got Guaita at home. I'm sure there's going to be a Callum Wilson goal in the last minute for me.
Yeah.
Jimenez last minute, for you. But with Guaita in goals, I'll leave it there. The back four I'm pretty happy with. So Alexander Arnold, Spilicueta, Christensen and Cancelo. I don't know if Christensen is going to play, obviously. But I've got Cody first bench, so fine. Midfield, Rafinha, Salah, Benrahma, and Mbeumo. And then up front, Antonio Lukaku. I've got Trossard and Dennis. I've got a lot of bench depth. Don't know if I'm going to be captaining Lukaku or Salah yet, but I will see how that goes. I'm not entirely sure. Just to voice over where Anthony is. Anthony is said to me that he's perhaps going to be moving on. He's got 3 million in the bank now, so he's got a lot that he can play with. He said he might move on Sanchez and go up to Edison, or he might move on Benrahma. But he's in a 4-3-3, still a kind of a relic of his freemium times. We've got Sanchez in goal, Cancelo, Cody, White, and Livramento at the back. That's not as good as that's okay. Saka, okay, that's a bit of a problem. He's got the bus captain on Salah. And Rafinha. And up front, he's got the double up, Lukaku and Werner. And he's got Antonio. He's also got Rudiger on the bench. And if he's fit, obviously he comes in and things look a lot better. But I'm actually a little bit worried about him having Lukaku and Werner. I'm pretty sure that's the sort of kind of double up, which could, on a week where everything goes well, end up with him having a 90+ week. Let's see. And finally, Karam, where are you?
Yeah, I'm going with Meslier in goal, Cancelo, TA, and I actually swapped. If you are watching the video, I have White in the 11, but I swapped him for Livramento. So it's going to be Livramento in back three. Salah is there, Rafinha is there, and I'm going to get Mbeumo not next week, the week after Leicester. And it's a last show between Sarr and Gray, who are facing each other. I definitely know that the game will end 0-0, but we'll try my best. So I'll keep them for one more week, see who does well, and ship the other.
Have you not thought about having Sarr on the bench and then playing Livramento and White and playing a 4-3-3, or are you always looking at the attacker first?
Yeah, I considered this bet for a few minutes, but. I didn't like the Arsenal defense this night against Palace, and I think
that's the thing, isn't it?
We thought that they are decent now. They're compared to keep tons of clean sheets, but tonight was a bit different. So I think Villa have more capability to score against Arsenal. So I think I will live with White on the bench and start Livramento. I think both teams can score. I think what has it changed? Watford did not change, has been really bad against Liverpool. But Sarr has been moved to the number 9 and he hit the post. So maybe he will be an out of position for the new formation with Ranieri. Maybe. It's not maybe not, but maybe. And I don't think Everton is a team that can say, okay, that's a 2-pointer. I fancy this game to be a bit high scoring. And also Rosford Gray, he's been playing all around. I don't know what's his really position. Is it a wing? Is it central? He's all over the pitch, which is good and bad. It's not working out yet. So I'm giving both of them a chance. I would feel gutted if one of them scores and the other one is on the bench, and he's on the bench and the other one blank. Okay. So I'll just play both.
I'd rather Ben White bench in that situation.
Yeah,
boring,
exactly.
but he's centre back. It's very unlikely.
Exactly. And lastly, Antonio, Lukaku, and Vardy. Lukaku captain. I don't think I will change it unless we hear something like it's a perfect. You know what worries me about Lukaku? If he plays the Champions League, this is a perfect game week to bench him, and he might come on for a point.
I think he needs a goal.
He needs a goal, huh?
Know that. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's your lot this week. Thanks for listening. We will hook up assist. Can you please give us a 5-star review, like what we heard, on whatever podcast you're listening to, podcast website listening to, that is. YouTube, you can find us on there. If you are the kind of person who does like to watch rather than listen, there are probably a few more mistakes. It'll be less finessed than the sound file, but there you go. Correspondence in Anthony's absence. That is whogotassist@gmail.com. Anything you want to add, any kind of question you want us to debate at length, or indeed any question that you just think, well, I want to have my time of these guys' attention, just do it. The league code is 2IP43T. And thanks very much, Karam, for coming on. Absolute lifesaver in Anthony's sudden absence. But yeah, I really enjoyed podding with you. I'm glad to speak to you in person. Last time we spoke was on the Scoutcast, probably about 2 years ago.
Yeah, we met in London also around that time.
Yeah,
almost 2 years. Yeah.
But I mean, in this sort of situation where we're podcasting for other people. Great to have you on, man.
Yeah, I'm pleased to be on. Thanks for having me. And hopefully next week Seth will be ready to come back.
I'm sure he will.
Thanks.
I'm sure he'll be.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers.
Well, either way, we hope to think about whether you should captain Salah for the next few weeks. We'll be back next week. Thanks very much for listening. We'll speak to you very, very soon. Goodbye.